The dining room at Lucente smelled of butter and lemon and hot candle wax, and Marin Ellison had exactly 4 seconds to catch the champagne flute before it hit the marble floor. She caught it. Table 12 had ordered a bottle that cost more than her rent, and the man pouring it had been careless, and now Marin stood with the flute steady in her palm while her heart hammered against her ribs. She set it down without spilling a drop. Nobody at the table noticed. That was the job. You were only seen when something went wrong. She had been at Lucente for 8 months, long enough to know the rhythms of the room, the way the maitre d' cleared his throat before seating anyone important, the way the kitchen door swung twice when an order was rushed. She did not yet know the man who walked through the front doors at 8:15 that evening, but she knew, the instant she saw him, that the room had changed shape around him. He wore a charcoal suit with no tie, the top button of his shirt undone, and he moved through the restaurant the way water moves around a stone, unhurried, certain, as if the space had already agreed to accommodate him. A signet ring caught the candlelight on his right hand. His hair was dark, threaded faintly with silver at the temples, and his eyes, when they passed briefly over Marin, were the flat gray of a winter sky before snow. He said something quiet. The maitre d' nodded twice, fast, and led him to the private alcove at the back, the one reserved for people who did not want to be seen and could afford not to be. Beside him walked a woman in a burgundy dress, her dark hair pulled into a severe knot, a diamond bracelet flashing at her wrist with every gesture of her hand. She was already complaining before she had crossed the threshold. Something about the drive, something about the traffic. "That's Camille Moretti," whispered Ruthie, the other server on the floor that night, as she passed with a tray of bread. "And that's her husband. Should I know who that is?" Ruthie's face did something complicated. "You'll figure it out fast." The manager pulled Marin aside within minutes, his smile tight and apologetic. "Table in the alcove is yours. Be perfect." "Who are they?" "Mr. Moretti," the manager said, lowering his voice as if the walls might carry the name back to the man they belonged to. "Just be perfect." She smoothed the front of her black apron and walked toward the alcove with her spine straight. She had waited on senators. She had waited on a man who once played himself in a movie about his own life. She could do this. But she had never waited on a table where the air itself seemed to have weight, where the man at the head of it barely looked up from his menu, and yet she felt observed anyway, catalogued, measured. Vincent Moretti did not raise his voice. He did not need to. When he asked for the wine list, the sommelier appeared within 90 seconds, as though summoned by instinct alone. His wife was a different matter entirely. "This tablecloth has a stain," Camille said, before Marin had finished introducing herself. She held up a fold of linen, inspecting it with the disgust of a woman handling something diseased. "Get a new one. Now." "Of course. I'll have that changed right away." "And tell whoever set this table the silverware placement is wrong. Did nobody train you people?" "I'll fix it immediately, ma'am." Camille's eyes swept over her, taking in the apron, the low ponytail, the flat black shoes, with the particular contempt of a woman who had once stood exactly where Marin stood, and had spent every year since trying to erase the memory. "What's your name?" "Marin." "Marin." Camille said it like it tasted bad. "Try not to embarrass yourself tonight." Vincent did not look up from the wine list, but something in his jaw shifted, a small tightening, there and gone, and Marin understood this was not the first time he had watched his wife speak to someone like this. It was simply the first time he had done nothing about it in front of a witness who mattered. 20 minutes later, Camille sent back an appetizer she had not touched, claiming it was cold, though Marin had carried it from the kitchen herself and felt the heat rising off the plate through the linen napkin in her palm. "This is inedible," Camille announced, loud enough that conversation faltered at 2 nearby tables. Take it back. Tell the chef I want to speak to him. I want to know who is running this kitchen, because clearly no one competent. I can have the kitchen prepare it fresh right away. I want to speak to the chef. He's mid-service, but I'm happy to relay any specific concerns. Are you arguing with me? No, ma'am. I'm trying to solve the problem. The problem, Camille said, standing now, her chair scraping back hard enough that 2 tables turned to look, is that this restaurant hires people who cannot do their jobs. Do you have any idea what a night here costs? Or does that number simply not register for someone like you? The dining room had gone quiet in the way rooms go quiet when they sense a scene coming. Marin felt her face go hot, felt the old, familiar humiliation rising in her chest. She could apologize. She could bow her head and take it, the way she had been trained to. But she looked past Camille, just for a second, and found Vincent watching her. Not his wife. Her. His face gave away nothing, but his eyes held something that was not quite approval and not quite pity, something more careful than either, like a man watching to see what a person did under pressure, because that told him more than anything they could say. Marin straightened her spine. I understand exactly what a night here costs, she said, quiet, steady. I also understand that I brought you a hot dish, prepared correctly, and yelling at me in front of a room full of guests isn't going to change what's on your plate. I'm going to have the kitchen remake it, at no charge, because that's the right thing to do. But I'm not going to stand here and be spoken to like I'm nothing, because I'm not. The silence that followed had a texture to it, thick and startled. Excuse me? You heard me. Do you know who my husband is? I know he's a customer, Marin said, same as you, and customers don't get to treat staff like garbage just because they can afford the wine. For 1 full second, nobody in the alcove moved. Then Vincent Moretti laughed. It was not a loud laugh, low, surprised, almost involuntary. Camille's head whipped toward him, fury and disbelief chasing across her face. Vincent! Sit down, Camille. His voice had not risen at all, and yet something in the room shifted at the sound of it, the way pressure shifts before a storm. Camille sat. Her fury banked itself down into something colder, her eyes fixed on Marin with the particular hatred of a woman who had just been publicly corrected by her own husband in front of a stranger in an apron. I'll get that dish remade, Marin said, and turned before either of them could speak again, walking back toward the kitchen with her pulse roaring and her hands, she realized only once through the swinging doors, shaking. She had just insulted the wife of a man everyone in this restaurant treated like visiting royalty. She did not yet know what she had actually done. The chef remade the dish without complaint. Marin carried it back out with her spine straight, and this time Camille said nothing, only picked at the food, refusing to look at Marin once. Vincent, however, looked at her every time she approached the table. It was not obvious. He was too disciplined a man for that, but she felt it, the weight of his attention, each time she refilled water glasses or cleared a course. When he thanked her by name at the end of the entree, she noticed. Most people forgot her name within 30 seconds of hearing it. He said it once, quietly, like he was testing the shape of it in his mouth. Camille noticed too. By dessert, her voice had dropped into something clipped and venomous, directed at Vincent now, low and hissing. You embarrassed me. You embarrassed yourself. In front of the staff. The staff isn't the point, Camille. The point is, you don't know how to behave in public, and I'm tired of cleaning up after it. Marin, clearing bread plates, heard every word and pretended to hear none of it. It was never her business, whatever happened after the food was served. But something about tonight would not let her look away entirely. The dinner ended without further incident. Camille left first, her heels sharp against the marble, not looking at Marin once. Vincent lingered, settling the check with a card the manager returned within record time, the kind of speed reserved for people whose money was never questioned. He stood, buttoned his jacket, and addressed her directly for the first time all evening. You didn't have to do that. Do what? Say what you said. Most people in this city learn very quickly not to say things like that to my wife. Marin held his gaze. Most people probably have a reason to be scared of your wife. I don't. You should be more careful about who you don't know. Is that a threat? No, he said, and for a moment his voice lost some of its careful edge. It's advice. There's a difference, and it matters which one you assume you're hearing. He left a tip beneath the check presenter before he walked out. It was not until Marin picked it up in the empty alcove that she understood exactly how much he had left, and understood, with a cold drop in her stomach, that a tip that size was never simply a tip. It was a message. She did not yet know what it said. $800, folded once. Ruthie glanced at it, then toward the front doors where the black car idled at the curb. You should be careful with that family. Why? Who is he, actually? Vincent Moretti, Ruthie said, lowering her voice. Construction, waste management. Half the permits in this city go through companies with his family's name buried 3 shell corporations deep. Most people who work here smile and nod and let it go. You just told his wife off in front of half the dining room and made him laugh doing it. Marin looked down at the money. It did not feel like a reward. It felt, suddenly, like a hook set gently beneath her skin. The kind that did not hurt until someone decided to pull. She should have thrown it back. $800 was 3 weeks of rent. It was not a decision she had the luxury of making on principle alone, and some part of her hated that fact more than she hated anything Camille had said all night. She kept the money. She told herself it changed nothing. She was wrong. Vincent Moretti returned to Lucente alone on a Tuesday night, 3 weeks later, seated at the small corner table near the window, and he asked specifically for her section. The manager delivered this with visible confusion. Good evening, Marin said, approaching with her pad already in hand. Can I start you with something to drink? Whatever you'd recommend. He was not looking at the wine list. He was looking at her. She recommended a Barolo, and when he tasted it, he gave the same single nod from 3 weeks earlier. The nod that meant approval was rare enough to be noteworthy. Where's your wife tonight? At home. She doesn't ask, and I don't tell her where I eat dinner. His voice carried no defensiveness, only a flat, tired honesty. Does that bother you? It's not my business. That's not what I asked. I don't know you well enough to have an opinion about your marriage, Mr. Moretti. Vincent. I don't know you well enough for that either. Something that was almost amusement crossed his face, gone as quickly as it appeared. He ordered dinner without much conversation after that, and when she came to clear his plate, he spoke again. I looked into you. Her hands stilled. Excuse me? After that first night, I had someone look into who you were. He said it plainly, without apology. Marin Ellison, 21, grew up 2 hours north, working 2 jobs before this one to help your mother after your father left. No criminal record, no family connections to anyone in my world. He watched her face. You're exactly who you appear to be. That's rarer than you'd think in my line of work. You had someone investigate me because I told your wife off? I had someone investigate you because I don't let people close to me without knowing who they are first. And I find that I want you close, Marin, which is a problem because everyone who gets close to me ends up carrying weight they didn't ask for. Is that a warning? It's the truth. Most people prefer the warning. It's gentler. His eyes held hers, steady, and the noise of the restaurant seemed to recede. I've had 100 people flatter me in the last month. You're the only one who told me the truth I didn't want to hear, and you did it in front of my wife, knowing what it might cost you. I still don't know what it will cost me. No, he agreed. You don't. That should probably frighten you more than it seems to. He came back the following week, and the week after. Always alone, always her section, always a tip generous without being obscene, the amount of a man exercising restraint rather than trying to buy something. Their conversations grew longer with each visit. He asked about her shifts, her mother, the 2-hour drive she made once a month. She learned, in careful fragments he offered deliberately, about a brother named Antonio who had died 11 years earlier, shot in a territory dispute Vincent had inherited responsibility for the moment the funeral ended. He was supposed to run things, Vincent said one night, turning his wine glass slowly without drinking from it. I was supposed to stay clean, go to law school. That was the plan our father made before either of us was old enough to have an opinion about it. The night he died, I was the one who found him. I've run this family for 11 years because someone had to, and every day of it feels like paying a debt I never agreed to owe. You didn't choose this. No. But you stayed anyway. Someone had to protect what was left. If I'd walked away, someone else would have taken it, and they wouldn't have cared what happened to anyone who couldn't defend themselves. He looked up at her, something unguarded in his expression she had not seen before. You're the only person outside my own blood I've told any of that to in over a decade. Why me? I've been trying to work that out since the night you told my wife she was being spoken to like nothing. I think it's because you weren't afraid of me. Everyone else in my life is afraid of me. You looked at me like I was simply a man who'd left a rude woman's dinner check unpaid. A faint smile touched his mouth. It's been a long time since anyone looked at me and saw only a man. She should have told him this was dangerous. She thought it clearly, in careful order. But what she said instead was, "I'm glad you told me." And she meant it. The trouble arrived on a Thursday. Marin was closing out her section, counting tips in the alcove behind the host stand, when the front door opened and Camille Moretti walked in alone, her face set in something colder than the entitled fury of that first dinner. "We need to talk," Camille said, stopping directly in front of her. "I'm working." "I don't care. I know my husband has been coming here. I know he asks for you." Camille's eyes swept over her, something closer to desperation beneath the contempt now. "You have no idea what you're standing in the middle of. My husband does not have affairs. He has never once in 11 years looked at another woman the way he looks at you, and that terrifies me, because a man like Vincent doesn't do anything halfway. There are people who have been waiting years for a crack in this family they can use. You are that crack, whether you meant to be or not." "I'm not trying to take your husband from you." "It doesn't matter what you're trying to do." Camille's composure cracked further, and for the first time she looked less like a woman defending territory and more like a woman drowning in it. "There are people who would hurt you to send Vincent a message. You are not safe simply by being near him." "Why are you telling me this? You hate me." "Because whatever else I am, I don't want to watch someone die for a mistake she didn't understand she was making. That's not hate, Marin. That's the one decent thing I have left to offer." She left without another word. Marin stood alone with her tips still uncounted in her hand, the warning settling into her bones like weather she could not outrun. She did not tell Vincent directly the next time he came in, but he noticed something different in her. "Something's wrong." "Your wife came to see me." She told him what Camille had said. His face went very still. "There's a family in Jersey I've had trouble with for 2 years. A territory dispute that started before Antonio died and never fully resolved. They've been looking for leverage, a weak point." His eyes met hers. "If they knew about you, about how often I come here, you would become exactly that." So your wife was right. My wife is many things I don't respect. She's not wrong about this. He reached across the table, not touching her, but close. I should have thought about this before I let myself keep coming back. I convinced myself this was harmless, and that was selfish, because I know exactly what my world does to people who stand too close to it. Then stop coming. Do you want me to? I want to still be alive in a year, she said finally. I don't know if those two things are the same thing anymore. He left that night without touching his dinner, and for 11 days he did not come back. Those 11 days were worse than she expected. On the 12th day, two men she did not recognize came in near closing and sat at the bar, watching the room, unhurried, deliberate, the hair rising on the back of her neck before she could name why. When one of them asked the bartender, in a casual tone that did not match his eyes, whether a woman named Marin still worked there, Frank the bartender gave a vague answer and immediately texted the manager. There are two men at the bar asking about you by name, the manager said, pale. Frank doesn't like the look of them. I called it in already. There's a card taped inside the office safe. Emergency contact for exactly this. Someone's already on their way. Marin peered through the kitchen door window. The two men waited, patient, the kind of patience that came from people paid to wait. She pulled her phone and texted Ruthie on the floor. Get everyone away from the bar. Kitchen exit. Now. Then she moved to the back office, locked the door, and pulled up the security footage, needing to know exactly how many she was dealing with. The door handle turned, locked, turned again. 2 sharp knocks. Marin, it's me. Open the door. Vincent stood in the hallway with 2 of his men behind him, moving with the same economical precision she had noticed from the first night. How did you know? Camille called the second she heard men were asking for you by name. Whatever else she is, she's not petty enough to let you get hurt over this. His eyes swept over her, checking for injury. Are you hurt? No. I locked myself in before they got past the bar. Good. You did exactly the right thing. What do they want? Me. Through you. This is the Jersey family. This is exactly what I was afraid would happen. And it happened because I was too selfish to stay away. So what do? We do not run. Running confirms exactly what they wanted to know. My men will handle the 2 at the bar. I need you to stay here. I'm not going to sit here and do nothing while you handle armed men. Give me something to do. He studied her, and something in his eyes shifted, an assessment ending in her favor. There's a second exit through the loading dock. I need you to get the rest of the staff moving toward it, quietly, without causing a panic. It was not nothing. Marin moved through the kitchen with calm, deliberate urgency, gathering the line cooks and the servers, and Ruthie, guiding them toward the loading dock with the practiced calm of someone running a drill rather than living through a crisis. She did not look back toward the dining room, though she heard the controlled scrape of chairs, low voices, a confrontation being handled with more discipline than violence, at least so far. By the time the last of the staff was safely in the alley, the 2 men from the bar were gone, and Vincent stood near the host stand, his men fanned near the doors, the dining room otherwise undisturbed. They're gone. For tonight. His eyes met hers, something fully unguarded now. They won't stop because one attempt failed. You're not safe going home alone. I need you somewhere I can protect you, and I need you to trust me enough to let me. She thought about the 11 days of silence, about Camille's warning, about the patience of paid men, and she thought about the fact that despite every reasonable instinct, she did not want to run. Okay, I trust you. You shouldn't, not entirely, not yet. I didn't say I trusted your world, Vincent. I said I trust you. She held his gaze. "That's different, and I think you know it." He reached out and closed his hand gently around hers, his palm warm and steady given everything that had just happened. "Thank you," he said, and the two syllables carried a weight far heavier than they should have. The safe house was a quiet brownstone, unremarkable from the street, guarded discreetly by men who did not look like guards. She stayed there for 4 days while his people worked to identify the threat. On the third night, in the kitchen long after the guards had gone quiet, Vincent told her the rest of it. The betrayal from a capo he had trusted like a brother, the 11 years of running a family that feared him more than loved him. "You didn't listen to any part of what should have scared you off," he said. "You've seen exactly what it costs now, and you're still here." "I'm still here." "Why?" "Because you didn't try to dazzle me. You told me the truth about who you are, even the ugly parts, and let me decide for myself whether I could stand next to it. Most people don't give you that choice, Vincent. They just decide for you." He reached for her hand across the table, and it was not tentative. It was the gesture of a man who had decided something and did not intend to take it back. The confrontation with the Jersey family came 4 days later, engineered not by violence, though violence remained a possibility until the end, but by Maren herself. She remembered a detail from the restaurant floor that Vincent's people had missed, a name one of the men at the bar had mentioned in passing to Frank, a cousin who worked as a line cook 2 restaurants over and had once complained to Ruthie about a family debt owed to men from Jersey. Maren traced the thread through 3 phone calls and 1 visit, and what she found was leverage of her own. Proof the Jersey boss had been extorting vulnerable workers across half the city. Proof that, delivered quietly to the right hands, exposed him as a man who preyed on people beneath him rather than one who commanded respect through strength. It was not a gunfight that ended the threat. It was Maren's own steady investigation. The same instinct that made her competent behind a service tray now turned towards something far more dangerous. When she laid the proof in front of Vincent, he looked at her with an expression she had never seen from him, something not quite awe and not quite gratitude, holding pieces of both. "You did this? I told you I wasn't useless." "I never thought you were useless, Maren. I underestimated exactly how much you were capable of." He studied the documents, then studied her. "This ends it, quietly. No more bodies, no more leverage hanging over your life because of what you mean to me." "What do I mean to you?" He crossed the small distance between them and kissed her, slow and certain, the kind of kiss that arrived only after every hesitation had already been resolved. When he pulled back, his forehead against hers, he said, "Everything. You mean everything." The separation from Camille, when it came weeks later, was handled without spectacle. She left the city entirely, and though Maren never saw her again, she carried, always, the strange gratitude of a warning delivered by someone who had every reason not to give it. Maren kept her job at Lucente for another year, though everyone on staff understood, without needing it explained, exactly what she was to the man who now visited every week, sitting at the same corner table, watching her work with an expression that had long since stopped hiding what it meant. On a quiet evening in late autumn, after her shift had ended and the restaurant had gone dark around them, Vincent found her in the alcove where it had all begun, counting the day's tips. He did not propose with a speech. He took her hand, turned it palm up, and set his mother's ring in the center of it. "I'm not going to pretend this life gets easier. There will always be another threat. Another night you have to trust me to protect you when I can't fully explain why. I'm asking you to choose that anyway. Not because I can give you safety, because I can give you honesty, and because you're the only person who's ever made me want to be worth trusting." Maren closed her hand around the ring, feeling its weight settle into her palm, and looked up at the man who had once been a stranger in a charcoal suit, a man whose world she had walked into with her eyes wide open and had never once regretted. "I already chose," she said. "I chose the night I told your wife off, and I never looked back." Outside, the city moved on around them, indifferent and glittering, the same city it had always been. Inside the empty restaurant, in the quiet hour after the last table had been cleared, two people who had built something honest out of danger stood together in the candlelight, and neither of them was afraid of what came next. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments what you thought of Maren and Vincent's story, and don't forget to subscribe for more dark romance next time.